Welcome to Live a Little with Marie Pachetta, New Hampshire's most widely distributed cable TV show.
Sold my first piece in 1968. It was a wizard under a toadstool. You laugh, I sold a pair of them for $60 a piece. I walked away from a day in an outdoor art festival with $500 in my pocket.
Welcome to the Banks Gallery, the Artist Studio, the third Saturday of every month. And our first one was last month. We're going to have this format. We'll have a sit-down audience. We'll have one of the artists in the studio that will be here so we can interview and understand their world, hopefully a little better. Tonight we have a gentleman who is currently a member of the Boston Guild, also a member of the Rockport Art Association, also the New England Plein Air Painters Association. He's got more awards, I think, in his lifetime than we can possibly list this evening. He's considered to be one of the leading artists on the East Coast. Some of you have heard me, I think, talk about the new aesthetic that's starting on the Northeast, and he's a big part of that. And I'd like to welcome Stapleton Kearns.
Thank you.
Stape is married to a woman named Kathleen who worked here this summer with me on Fridays and Saturdays. And I know that she takes care of certain things for your life.
Almost everything that's not painting. My kids go to school in Lexington, Massachusetts. That's 45 minutes away from our house. So we do a 90-mile round trip, taking the kids to and from school every day. So my wife has to do that. Sometimes we do a 180-mile round trip because she'll go in the morning and then come home, and then I'll go in the afternoon and come back. So we do 90 to 180 miles a day, taking the kids to and from school. Put a lot of mileage on a car real fast. I bought a Lincoln, put 100,000 miles on it in 2.5 years. But she's quite good with computers, so she does my website, all of my inventory, and there's a lot of it. It all has to be tracked. We've got all that on the computer. And of course, we were digital real early. So she's learned to use Photoshop and one of other programs she's good with. And all of the, returning correspondence and scheduling. She has actually a computer program to get me scheduled because there's a lot of things, places I have to be and things I do. I travel a lot. So it all has to be scheduled. She takes care of all that. She really is almost a manager for me.
Give everybody an idea of your itinerary over the past couple of months.
Geez, it's hard to, I live in a perpetual present. I have no memory at all anymore. I can't remember what I had for dinner last night. So it's hard to do, but I've done a lot of islands this year. I did early spring. T.M. Nicholas and I went out and did Vinyl Haven. That's an island off of Rockland, Maine. We were out there for a week. I came back. I went to Nantucket, did Nantucket for a week. Then I was briefly out on the Isle of Shoals with your son, a bunch of other artists. Back to Vinyl Haven for another week, and then a week on the mainland of Maine. I just did 12 days in Vermont. Gee, that's not all of it, but as much as I can remember right now. So in other words, I'm on the road about a third of the time. Spend a lot of time traveling. And of course, when I do, my wife has to field all the phone calls from galleries, and oftentimes there's things that have to be shipped, or we email people images of paintings in which they're interested. So there's an awful lot that has to go on. It's like, as soon as you finish the paintings, it's like any other small business. You have all of the responsibilities of any other kind of a shopkeeper. You've got inventory and people who have to be replied to and all that sort of thing. You're in Derry now, living in Derry. I live in Derry, New Hampshire.
For 2 years now?
No, I've been almost 5 years. 4 years, I think.
And why did you leave Rockport?
Well, we had a gallery in Rockport, and we were living above the gallery. And the kids got bigger and bigger. It was a pretty small space. And the gallery began to really be more than I wanted to do. I mean, I was just living, eating, sleeping, and breathing gallery. I mean, I lived in it. And that got to be old, I guess. I had a very small space I was working in there. And I needed a change. I just never lived in New Hampshire before. I've lived in Maine, and I'd lived in Massachusetts. I'd never lived in New Hampshire, so I guess I'm on a slow motion tour of New England. In fact, I keep hoping someday I'll move to Vermont. I'd like to do Vermont as well. It gives me new things to paint, and it's real strategic. I can get a lot of places from Derry. I can be in downtown Boston quicker than I could from Rockport, Massachusetts. It's really very strategic. And it's, I like New Hampshire. I like the live free or die attitude. I like the tax benefits. And it's a good place to be self-employed.
Now, once you moved there, you had a chance to build a new studio. Tell us about the studio.
Oh, I've got a crazy studio. I'm still building it. One of the reasons I bought the house was it had this funny two-story garage behind it. Not real big, it's 11 by 20. But it was 2 stories high, so I was able to rip out most of the second floor. I left part of it as a studio and closed off all the windows. And I had a roll-up front door on the front of it, which I got rid of. And I put the whole thing into a sort of a 19th century vernacular style. Spent a small fortune doing it. So it's got dark wood wainscoting and oak floors and great big Northlight windows on the back, and a lot of architectural salvage. I have a big black walnut mantel about the size of a grand piano that's stuck on one wall. And people can't really believe it's new. They come in and I said, "Was this here?" I said, "No, it's all new. I did all this." But the mantelpiece was here. It's all new. It's sort of a copy of the old Fenway Studios down in Boston on Ipswich Street. But I needed I mean, I live in the studio. When I'm not out on the road, I'm living in the studio. So I needed a place that I wanted to be. And I do have clients come through, and I want some place that looks real to them. They walk in and say, "Well, this is a real artist here." You know, it's important to have sort of a showpiece, because I don't have a gallery anymore. I had a gallery for years. This is my sort of performance space. And I've got this enormous easel in there. It looks very old-timey indeed.
Many years ago, back in the late 70s, I had the privilege of meeting and actually trying to play with Frank Zappa.
Oh, yeah.
And often when people ask me about Stape, if they haven't met him, I tell them that he looks just like Frank Zappa.
Well, not anymore, though. I've had a haircut. A year ago, I had my hair down to my shoulders, and I had the Zappa look going pretty good. I've always been fond of rock and roll. In fact, I often joke that I'm the point where traditional painting and rock and roll meet. But I've seen a lot of rock and roll musicians. People ask me who my big painting influences are, and I'll always say, well, Hibbert and Metcalf and Hendrix. And even the others say, well, who's Hendrix? I say, Jimi Hendrix.